Oh my God. What an intense episode. I'm triggered. I'm already triggered. First episode, Lovecraft Country, episode 1, Sundown triggered me. You know something's wrong with your ideology when the scariest part of a show that's dealing with mythological godlike creatures, 100-eyed vampire dog, monster, blob things aren't the scariest part. Monsters killing people are not the scariest part of this episode. It's your ideology and racist white cops. On this video, we're going to be talking about Lovecraft Country episode 1 titled Sundown. The double meaning of the word sundown for this opening episode. Sundown is the time when the monsters come out, and the monsters do come out. But I'm not talking about these monsters. I'm talking about these monsters. The racist white cops and the racist whites of the 1950s. My goodness, what an intense episode. But before we dive too deep into that, let's go to the beginning of this episode. And the episode starts off in black and white. And we have our main character, Atticus, fighting the Korean War. It's black and white. He climbs out of the trenches as they're getting bombed. He looks around and a giant octopus dragon creature flies by. And I'm like, that's Cthulhu. That's the god Cthulhu from the Lovecraft mythos. Now, for those of you who don't know, Cthulhu is a godlike creature in the Lovecraft universe. And he is like a deity of sorts. And in the eyes of Cthulhu, human beings are nothing. We're but a speck in the macrocosmos of the universe. Makes you feel real small, right? And then the alien ship comes out of nowhere and it beams down a pink alien creature. And I'm like, what is going on? She's hot, but what is going on? And then Cthulhu flies back around and lands in front of Atticus. And he's about to kill Atticus. And then boom, Jackie Robinson comes through and smashes it with a baseball bat. Wow. This opening sequence was intense. A lot happened. And the symbolism of this opening sequence was done to perfection because you guys don't understand the symbolism. So I'm going to break it down. Like I told you guys earlier, Cthulhu, outer god, big creature. We're but a speck in the macrocosmos of the universe. And human beings are nothing to this god. And in Lovecraft's own mind and his own poem that they reference in this episode titled On the Creation of Niggers. And in his poem, he talks about the creation of human beings and how we're created in the image of God. But not we as in brothers like me, but mainly how white people were created in the image of God. And the people of my pigmentation are trash, abominations, garbage, less than that. Now imagine Cthulhu, this powerful god who sees humans as nothing, and then us black people are beneath the nothing that humans are. So I'm sitting here like, this is interesting. And then Jackie Robinson smashes him, and I'm like, oh shit, I see what they did there. I got it. We in the Lovecraft mythos are less than nothing. And then we have a great American hero like Jackie Robinson show up and smash Cthulhu. That shows the subversion and the big middle finger to Lovecraft that the people that he thought were less than nothing smashed his all-powerful deity in Cthulhu. And I'm like, fuck yeah. And then Atticus wakes up. And I'm like, this was all a dream? It was a dream. Atticus was on the bus and he was dreaming this. And on this bus, he's reading the book John Carter Goes to Mars. John Carter Goes to Mars is another racist book about a white man who goes to the planet Mars to save the savages, aka the Martians. In this sequence, when he's reading this book, even though he is an army veteran and there's a sweet old lady next to him, so when the bus breaks down, the white people are taken to another bus and he is left to walk on foot with this lady. And I'm thinking like, who are the savages? So already in the first episode, we're seeing all the symbolisms and all the clues that they're laying the groundwork for as the season is going to progress. Atticus ends up in Chicago, and in Chicago, it's a bit more integrated in the South. And we see black kids running around having fun. They have a block party, and we see a thriving black community. And that's them giving us a taste and juxtaposing what we see in Chicago to what we're gonna see in the rest of the episode. Because once they leave an integrated city like Chicago and they head on the road, everything changes. But before they leave Chicago, we get a glimpse of how Atticus's life was, how abusive his relationship with his father was, the dynamic between him and his uncle, who is a publisher. But then one of the more crucial things that happens in Chicago is we're introduced to the character of Letty. Now, Letty is an interesting character in this first episode because in that time, and well, to this day too, I guess, so that never went away, Letty is light-skinned. She's the lightest black character we have on the show so far. And I found the fact that she's light-skinned very interesting to her character. And that's because of colorism. You see light-skinned girl, you think, okay, pretty, beautiful, have her things together. She's more able to integrate with the white communities, and she's overall more successful than the black counterparts and the darker-skinned sisters. But I'm like, she's not. Letty ain't shit. Her sister's not messing with her. Her brother's not messing with her. She has no place to live. She ain't got a job, and she's just bouncing from place to place. And I'm like, what a subversion. Because you would think the light-skinned chick has her shit together or has someone taking care of her, but that's not the case. She is black. Just because you're light skinned don't make you any less black than everybody else. So I love the fact that they subverted the aspect of her being light skinned. But we move back to Atticus, and Atticus and his uncle have to go to Arden, Massachusetts to find his father. And this is important because the job that the uncle does, on top of being a publisher, he also writes a guidebook. Think of the guidebook like the Green Book from that movie with Mahershala, the Green Book, terrible movie, but that's another story for another time. He writes a guidebook telling Negroes or black people where it's safe to stop, where you can and cannot eat. That guidebook and what he's doing is very important to the survival of black people in that time period because they have to know what towns they can spend the night in. They have to also know what restaurants they can eat because it's racist America. And if you get caught in one of these towns after sundown. Also, before they leave Chicago, there's a silver sedan that's been following Atticus, and that's the same sedan that they said his father went into. And that sedan is going to play a very interesting role in this episode because that seems to be a sort of guardian angel or someone who's actually following him. We're not too certain yet just the full extent of what's happening with that sedan. So now they're on the road, they're driving through America, and they're stopping at different places, and we're seeing the way that America was at the time. Segregation, they can't enter this door, they have to eat from here, they have to drink this water fountain, they have to use this gas station. White people are harassing them throughout the trip. And we learn a very important character trait of Atticus. Atticus don't play that shit because he served in the Korean War. He fought for this country. He has a right to be here. And he's not going to let people just pick on him because of the color of his skin. So we're already getting to see just the type of character Atticus is and just his sense of duty and right and wrong. And I found that very interesting. To me, one of the most intense parts of this first episode was when they try to go to Lydia's diner and they end up in Simmonsville's diner. Now, we get a clue as to what happened to Lydia's diner by seeing the vacant space next door. But when they go in there, people are freaking out. And I love the fact that Letty don't play no shit and she just straight up eases these two white women. I'm like, that's right, fuck them. So they go in there and they're sitting there and the white patron leaves. The guy who's working at the diner goes to the back and doesn't come back. Atticus and Letty wants to leave, but his uncle's like, we have a right to be here. So Letty goes to the bathroom. She overhears the guy who's working at the diner calling somebody and saying, I didn't serve them because I know what happened to Lydia last time. And we got a brief history of what happened to the White House and why it's painting white and the juxtaposition of the white paint of the White House to the white paint of this diner and how it was burned down. Because the very diner they're in used to be Lydia's fucking diner. And Letty comes hauling ass, yo, we have to get the fuck out of here. They get up and start running, sirens are coming, and that's a shootout. They're getting chased by the fire department. And this is so triggering that they're getting chased by the fire department because the fire department is supposed to help you. If you're in trouble, it's a public service. But instead of helping the public, the people who would need them, they're hunting them down and trying to kill them because the color of their skin. I was triggered. I was bothered. I was angry because what the fuck, man? If you can't call 911, who can you call? Breathe. I need to breathe and chill the fuck out. So with some savvy driving, they're on the open road and Letty does this cool maneuver which the gray car comes in and the gray car flips the people who are hunting them down. However, they don't touch the gray car. It's like a barrier appeared and the car flipped over. And now I'm like, okay, something's up. This gray car is supernatural. And of course, it's Lovecraft country, H.P. Lovecraft. Mysticism has to be involved. But now my eyebrows are raised. So we end up at Letty's brother's house. And Letty and her brother are beefing, arguing. Atticus's uncle has a picture of Atticus's mom in his wallet. And then I flash back to earlier in the episode, and Atticus opened the book, The Count of Monte Cristo, and there's a picture of his mom, his dad, and him as a child. And I'm like, The Count of Monte Cristo! Wow. So now there's a dynamic here. I figured something out. The reason this hit me like a ton of bricks is because the story of The Count of Monte Cristo. The Count of Monte Cristo is the story of Monte Cristo, how his life was stolen, his fiance was stolen from him by somebody he trusted. And I'm sitting here like, Atticus's dad stole Atticus's mom from the uncle, and the uncle is Atticus's dad. That's where my mind went. The uncle is Atticus's dad because Atticus said something very important to the uncle and the uncle said something back. We don't get involved in family business. And Atticus said, when my dad was beating me as a child, you never got involved. Is that also family business? So I'm like, why is he not saving his nephew unless that's his son and he doesn't want his brother to find out that he was messing with his wife or that he stole his wife and that's his son? Wow. This show, literary masterpiece. Jesus. So the following morning, Letty's brother doesn't let her stay the night, and Letty ends up getting in the car with them, and they go to Devon County, and they're in Arden. And the sheriff of Devon County comes and starts harassing them, and he tells them, do you know what a sundown town is? And I didn't know what that was. I knew of the actuality of sundown towns. I just never knew that they had a name. But they're not in a sundown town. They're in a sundown county, and they have 7 minutes to get the fuck out of this county, or the sheriff is gonna kill them. And I'm like, holy shit. But before they leave, the sheriff degrades Atticus and has Atticus beg him to allow him to leave. And now he's hunting them down. And this is the most intense scene in the entire show, because they're trying to beat the sunset. They have 6 minutes to cross the county lines, or the sheriff is gonna kill them. They barely make it, and the blockade of sheriffs are waiting for them, and they're taken to the forest. The sun set, it's sundown, they're about to die. And that's the climax of the episode, Sundown. It's titled Sundown. The climax is they were caught at sundown. Racist whites are gonna kill them. Monsters upon monsters. And when I mean monsters upon monsters, that's when these monsters could show up. These monsters are called Shoggoths. They're these blob-like creatures in the Lovecraft mythology, and they work for a higher god in his mythology. So they're essentially lapdogs. But they're blobs that take on the form of many things. And in this episode, they're taking the form of dog-like vampire creatures. And now I'm trying to decide who are the real monsters, the Shoggoth or the sheriff. Because even though they're all being attacked by the Shoggoths, the sheriff and his deputies are still racist as shit. And I'm like, bruh, your racism runs so deep that you have to harass us when we have monsters on our asses. Triggered. I am triggered. But luckily for them, the uncle survives and makes his way to the cabin. We find out the Shoggoths are like vampires in the sense that they're afraid of light and they're have an aversion to light. So Atticus comes with the plan that they're gonna get the car, shine the headlights, and scare the monsters off. Before Atticus can go, the sheriff just shows how much of a piece of shit he is, and he says Atticus can't go. Atticus is a smart, uppity nigga. He might just leave. We have to send Letty out there. And Letty's like, oh my God, I have to go. Atticus doesn't want that to happen. The sheriff is going to kill Atticus in order for him to send the girl out instead of him being a man or him sending Atticus out because he's a coward piece of shit. And Letty's like, you know what? I'm a track star. I got this, Atticus. I'm like, you're a track star? What does that have to do with demon creatures? And then Letty shut me the fuck up because she opened that door and she hauled ass. I was like, woo! These creatures are chasing her and she's bucking ass. And I'm like, yo. But she makes it to the car, and while this is happening, the sheriff was bitten by the blob creature, the Shoggoth, and he's turning into one of them. And he's about to attack Atticus and his uncle until Letty comes in, crashes with the car, smashes him, has the headlights, and now they're surrounded by Shoggoths. They're about to die, but something happens. Even though they have lights to push them off, they have flares. A whistle happens, and the Shoggoths leave as though their master has called them. So the night is over. Letty, Atticus, and Atticus' uncle survive, and they start walking. And they're walking through the night, and they make it to sunrise, and they end up at this mansion. But what's interesting is this mansion has the same silver car that's been following them, as though they were being led there. And the door opens to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. And I'm like, hold on. The person who helped them earlier was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman. And I'm like, blonde hair, blue eyes, eugenics, that's Lovecraft's shit. Blonde hair, blue eyes, Aryan races, white people. I'm like, okay, this is some freaky shit, and the episode ends. A lot of things happen. This episode is intense. The themes of this episode resonate a lot, and I just like the juxtaposition and the subversion that they're doing to Lovecraft's work, because Lovecraft was an adamant racist and a bigot, and the fact that they're taking his world, his work, his creatures, they're subverting all the narratives. They're giving us a black protagonist, Atticus Freeman, who is also a war veteran. He's also very smart. He's into books. He's well built. Like, he's everything that they thought black people could not be, and he's the protagonist of a Lovecraft story. And early in the episode, I skimmed over the fact that he has a girlfriend in South Korea, or something happened to him in South Korea where he was warned not to go back. I didn't touch too much on that, but I want to correlate that with the alien that he talked to in the beginning, who she could possibly be his love interest. That's why he's dreaming of her and thinks of her as this foreign alien, because she's from South Korea. That's another interesting aspect. Overall, this first episode was intense. I was triggered. I was excited. I was scared. It gave me so much emotion, so I'm excited to see where this season goes next. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you guys liked the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, binge on.